All right, we're very happy to have Christian here from Qt Company, who is the man for all things Python and Qt, and he will tell us how you can combine the magical powers of both those things to build even more awesome applications. Please welcome Christian.
Hello. Good. So I will try to speak like this so we all fall asleep after the food, right? No. Good. So to be honest, thanks for being here. I wanted to be in the other talk, but I was told by the organization that I couldn't be to the other talk at the same time that I was giving this one presentation, so that's the thing. So likely we will have the video later, because that's also a really interesting topic, because if you're here, I hope, is because you're really into getting a sense of why it's really cool to add maybe new languages or new technology in general to the Qt ecosystem, right? So as Steele already said, my name is Christian. I work in the Qt company for a little bit more than 4 years. I started working there as a software engineer. Now I'm an R&D manager. I'm in charge of the Qt for Python team and as well the Qt core team in Berlin. Okay, so please don't worry about taking photos. Well, if you want to take photos, please take focus, but don't worry about it. The slides are there. You can go there right now and spoil all their surprises in the following slides, but don't worry about it. These are already online, so you can take all the references. There will be YouTube videos there, links to documentations, examples, and so on and so forth. So if you want, remember that URL, and you will get the same thing. Usually, of course, as well, you can contact me on social media. Here's my handle, in case you want to send me a message saying, oh, can you please repeat what you meant when you were saying blah, blah, blah. So feel free to do that as well. I will be happy to reply to you. Okay, so first of all, I just want to throw age into the discussion topic. And to my surprise, of course, when I was learning Qt, learning Python, I noticed that they started development like around the same time. I mean, there is like plus minus 3-4 years. And also, they even got released around the same time as well. So they are technologies that have been evolving for a long time, and the same time, but they were not together all the time, of course. So in my opinion, one of the things that, of course, there is this common goal that we can find that Qt provide to C++ developers and Python in general as a programming language is simplicity, at least in my opinion. But I really don't like when the #1 argument out there for Python is like, oh, Python is simpler than C++, right? So for example, if we look at this code, if you are not using Python since 3, 5, 6, it might be the case that you're not familiarized with the annotation things there. Who is familiarized with type annotations in Python? Well, I see many hands, yes, still. So it is simple. Who believes that the Python is simple? Oh, you are, okay, I cannot see you all well, but don't be shy. I'd say that it's not simple, because it really depends on what you do with the language, right? So for the folks that already remember all your faces that raise the hand that they use Python, what does this condition does? Nobody knows? You can try then afterwards. And it's a simple one, so let's do declare a variable and do a print. What is that? So see, I mean, it really depends of how much you want to push the language to be simple or something like that. So yeah, maybe as a base, kind of like it's easier to read for people that have no idea about code in general, but you can make these simple languages complex as well. And I will keep you hanging there, and so hopefully you can try it at home. So what's the deal about these things? So the main idea here is not to let's replace C++ with Python and we all go home and now we write less lines of code. No. The idea here is to expose a new language with its own community and the whole set of projects that you have out there. Qt provides many things to the C++ ecosystem that Python already does for the Python developers. But the application that we have seen, for example, in the Python community is something that maybe is exploring Qt, or maybe it's a little bit too complex, or maybe, I don't know, the module is not official yet or something like that. So the main idea here is to bring a new sections of people in tech to Qt. And of course, I cannot say like this is the first time that we are doing, because as you are, maybe more of you are aware that there has been other Python bindings out there, which is PyQt, developed by Riverbank. So they have doing that, exposing Qt API to Python users. But in the Qt Python project, we want to do way more than that. And you will see it in the next slides. So if we talk about Python popularity, I gave a talk there. I was just starting to work in the Qt company. I was, OK, World Summit. And I was like, what? So I started to talk about Python in front of an audience of maybe 80, 99% of C++ developers. And one of the things that I was raising there was the popularity of Python as a language. So as you can see, some indexes there. There is this Stack Overflow survey that maybe you're familiar with, where they analyze like most popular, most loved languages, and so on and so forth. Back then, in 2018, I checked, and of course, that index was the 4th place already. Maybe you read the news, what comes the next slides. But then in a webinar, I decided to update those numbers. Python was becoming more and more popular, and then you can see there in the couple of positions that it was now, instead of like 7, it was the 4th, and still was the most wanted one. And in 2021, again, it was still growing in popularity. It was still the most wanted. And also, it got the 1st place on this TOB index thingy. And of course, I know that what you can say, like, yeah, but I mean, popularity is, I mean, those things are based in like how many times someone Googled something like, how do I do X in Python, or how to do this in C++. But still, I mean, we cannot neglect, as programmers in general, don't put labels on yourself like programmers, that at least in the Python ecosystem, there has been a lot of advance, movement, or spam, I don't know how you want to call it, about data science, for example, web development with the whole Django frameworks. Maybe if you are following Python news, the whole fast API thing that is used in many big tech companies and so on and so forth. But also about the community itself. The Python community, which I'm really glad to be actively participating in many of those, is really, really, really active. And they have groups for everything, different technologies. And since the stack is so broad, there are many people with different interests and backgrounds. And because of the same argument that before I was saying that it was not correct, that it's simple, many people jump into Python and start learning it. So it's something that we cannot neglect. And of course, it's the reasoning why Python is still sounding like, oh, this is a popular language. So of course, the survey results from the Stack Overflow for this year are not ready yet. But I expect that, of course, Rust, as you know, that they have the talk happening in the other track, is also growing a lot, and which is a really good thing, because for me, it's really not about, as I said, not black and white. It's like the more the merrier. I mean, I'm pretty sure that all the work that KDAV is doing, for example, now with Rust, is something that other languages and technologies can understand, learn, and grow by themselves. So we can, of course, get ideas from here and there. That's the whole point of having this diversity in the ecosystem regarding languages and technologies, to get new ideas. And why not? I mean, it's not like, for example, if you look at C++ 2023, there are many things that there like really sound Pythonic in a way. Like the standard format, for example, is really similar to F-strings. The way that now you can iterate containers with ranges and stuff, this really feels, at least for me as a C++ and Python developer, that is something like maybe they saw that, or maybe not, but oh, got inspired, it's really cool, and they implemented it. So everyone wins here. And as I said, the goal of this talk is not to convince you to switch to Python, but just to start exploring things with Python. So what's the relationship with C++? Most of the fame that Python modules and packages have, it's thanks to many other languages, as you might know, because there are many people that say, oh yeah, Python is slow, but yeah, it really, like, you know, star there, like, it depends. I found a paper that there was something like, I think that is really famous because it was controversial that in some algorithms, Python was faster than C++, because of course there were like a lot of copying and things like that, but still, extreme case, but it was possible. But yeah, the popularity, as I was saying, that of these modules, maybe, for example, you're familiar with Pandas or NumPy, those models, thanks to, of course, the way of writing C extensions, have been providing to the Python ecosystem a way of, like, in a couple of lines of code, to run many Fortran, C, C++ lines of code under the hood, and, of course, making the life of people using those modules easier. The whole machine learning data science that I was telling before, I mean, PyTorch is written in C++. So many of those things are from this union of things working together. So this is what we want to achieve, at least in the Qt ecosystem. Let's enrich the framework even more. So I know this is really like, oh, how pedantic, like to use Qt for Python is a solution for in the middle of these two sets, but I really hope that at least in this intersection that many other projects try to jump into that and try to improve things for everyone, right? So as I was mentioning before, something that we decided to focus a couple of years ago with Qt for Python was that if we aim to be a set of bindings for the Qt framework, that has like no value for you, not for any company that wants to use it, not for even for people that do. Because why? There were bindings out there already. So why we want to just have another one? So some people say, no, because the license is more permissive and stuff. But we wanted to go further, right? Try to add more things to be trying to improve the situation even better. So I was saying that there's just official bindings, but not only that. So one of the things that we are unlocking with providing just this Python interaction is, of course, that you can interact with many Python modules. For example, yesterday we had this really interesting talk about this biotech talk. I don't remember the title of the talk, but there were things like they were applying kind of filters and images, for example, that you can achieve, like in this example, like, oh, the example is not running because I decided to maybe to run some stuff. But in any case, don't worry about it. So the thing is that you can apply with different buttons. Let me try to maybe to do, no, okay, doesn't matter. But for example, no. So you can apply different filters on top of the image and then have some solution maybe for some customers in case you have some consulting and stuff. The same way you can interact with other charts modules in Python. For example, that's matplotlib. It's a little bit buggy if you saw already there on the left side. There's some label not working properly. But even though you have other solutions for this kind of plot, you can still mix things around and have maybe your interface written with PySide and then put in there some matplotlib interaction things that you don't need to worry about. Maybe something is missing huge charts or something like that. And the other point of view was that it's really important that we were trying to add things for C++ developers, but what about Python developers? Intriguing pause. No. So the thing is that the number one critique that I got in every single Python event that I was going is Qt API doesn't look like a Python module because camel case. And I was thinking like, come on, I mean, it's just writing things in a different way. No, they were kind of refusing because no, yeah, then you can feel that it's C++, so it's not Python. Some extremist people, of course. But so we said, okay, what we could do around it. So you can see here, for example, a really simple, nonsensical code for a couple of things there. You have a table widget and with some methods around a button and stuff like that. So this is how normal PySide code might look like. So one of the options that we decided to do is, okay, let's enable first snake case. So this is a runtime feature that when you import it, which kind of like enabling the option, you will get the option to use snake case API from the whole Qt framework. But it was not enough, because another thing that really doesn't feel like a Python module when you are programming is the setters and getters. And for that, you need to, for example, in that case, there was the button, for example, you have some property there that you can modify now, and instead of using the setters and getters, you can use and access directly the property that is living in the object that you have there. So these little details that you might think like, well, whatever, that really made a lot of people happy because now they felt that, okay, now I'm doing Python code as I was teach about how to do it. So this was the number one critique, as I said. We managed to put it there, and at least I have seen some people in blog posts and podcasts highlighting that, oh my God, but these guys, like this set of binding has this feature. So we are already trying to diverge a little bit from the concept that it's only binding, so trying to sprinkle something on top of it. Something else that we noticed is that since we are generating wrapper code, meaning like we will have some large C++ code that do some Python stuff, then call Qt API, and then get some information and put it back in Python, we noticed that this process is quite heavyweight, right? So if you're looking for performance, even memory performance, it's not really optimal. Imagine, for example, you have a Python list, and then you want to call some API in Qt that has a QVector. What do you need to do? You need to grab the Python objects, interpret that, populate a QVector, call the Qt API, copy things back if they're returning something, and then creating another Python list and put it there. A lot of work to do. But this is kind of how bindings work in that regard. So we decided to explore new options for this, and we decided to put in practice this opaque container. It's not a new idea. It's something that another tool, for example, implement as well, which is called PyBind 11. Maybe you have heard about it. If not, maybe I recommend you also to go on the QtDev YouTube channel. We had a nice discussion there about PyBind 11 and Shiboken, which is the generator that we use, and check it out. And also, it's an idea that, of course, was getting our attention because every time that you talk about performance, people say, oh, they try to read about it. So what we are doing, I'll just explain you the process, is that we will wrap directly the C++ object. We will not do the copying around Python and C++, and we were trying to interact with that right away. So as a simple example, if in case you don't know, a DQ, like just think about a list that you can optimally add things in both sides of a Python list. We have this type expose, which is QPoint list. No, spoiler, there's a list of QPoints. I did a really stupid and simple test there. Like, okay, let's add 1 million elements, and then let's pop 1 million elements. So if you talk about adding things, there you have the appending process, like, yeah, 0.55 seconds for the QPoint list, the list 78, yeah, the DQ, which is 0.01 for adding things on both sides. It's really fast, as you can see there. So you get a little bit of speed up. So now I did something like was a little bit unfair, because if you are familiar with Python code, doing pop on a list is not really optimal. So please, if you are doing it, don't do it. But it's not. So I just run the numbers again. And here you can find, for example, what is popping the 1 million elements from a list compared to the other one. That's not an overflow or anything. It's the real percentage of the time. And if you compare with a more like close structure in that regard, like more optimal for doing these kind of things, because it is encouraged for Python users to use DQ if you want to pop elements, you still get some speed up because of the whole like still doing some things around adding more layers to just calling directly the code. So I know this is an extreme case, and maybe none of you or even no one in the world is adding and removing 1 million elements, but who knows? I mean, these things, of course, as you notice, it's dependent on QPoint. And we haven't had many more. I think that there are like 2 or 3 opaque containers in the API that we just put there in case people could try it. But if at some point you say, oh, that would be a good idea to have this new Qt type in the middle of inside a list, maybe you can have a suggestion and we can start putting it there and you can improve your module solutions with PySide. OK, so I think that I am even 20 minutes now and half of the presentation, so I will slow down things again now. Something else that is really a controversial topic in the Python ecosystem is the whole packaging and how do you distribute solutions. So for this, since the team, of course, the Qt for Python team is not a team of 50 people, we said, OK, you know what? Instead of writing our own things, let's provide support for existing solutions and then let people use it. And if at some point there is really a pain point, let's try to think if we can add some value on top of some of those things. So if you're not familiar with, since Python, you cannot compile it, because yes, you can, but let's not go into there. Most of these packaging tools work in the following way. You have your application, then you run whatever tool, and then you zip your application with the Python interpreter. You create a binary that then your customer, for example, double-clicks it. This thing goes to a TMP, opens, execute the things, get execute, and then the things is removed. It's not really like compiling or anything. And of course, in the middle, if you add some security issues, then you can have the situations like, well, the customer is spying on the code, and yeah, that's why I don't use Python. And this situation was also a real problem. So, OK, well, so fair enough. So we started to explore many other tools. And in some of those, we noticed that there was one project that was not popular, at least for me, that it was really compiling Python code. They were grabbing the Python code, generating C extensions, and compiling a real binary. So it was really good news for us. We started collaborating. The maintainer was really open to us, so we were sending patches around, and we managed to get support. So it's usually our recommended solution. Here you can find the list of the many tools that, of course, we are compatible with, and I was just explaining to you. I think the most popular one, if for you Python developers around in the crowd, is PyInstaller, maybe because it rings a bell, and usually it's like every time that you kind of look on Google or DuckDuckGo, whatever, say how to package Python packages, PyInstaller comes to the game. But as I was just saying, that this is not really a proper like compiling packaging thing, but more like a freezing the whole code and stuff. And the tool that I was just explaining to you is the last one, Nuitka. So in case you are looking for solutions that you can generate kind of a real binary, maybe you can check it out. The project is really well maintained at the moment. Many people is jumping into this hype train, so maybe it's a good option for you. And there are other tools as well. For example, there's the one called Briefcase. It's from another framework that they also provide a pure Python UI framework for Python. And you will believe, how you contribute to that, because we are really in this situation that we want to grow together. So for example, they didn't have PySide 6 support. So I just submit a patch, and they say, OK, here, Python support. Oh, thanks, because we had one user asking for it. So that's what I want to put emphasis on, like, if you have requests, please let us know through the backtracking system, send us a message, and we will do our best to try to solve that. Something that I forgot to ask at the beginning of the talk is, like, who here has used PySide? Couple of people? Yeah, I can see. Well, sorry, the light is really as strong as they described before. But yeah, I see some hands there. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about and you are like, oh, why I didn't go to the other talk, tomorrow we will have a webinar which has the first part is like introduction to Qt for Python, like from nothing to install it and use it. So if you want, and maybe if you go to my handle on Twitter, I think before this talk I retweeted like, yeah, tomorrow we have a webinar. So in case you want to learn more about it, that will be mainly focused on introduction, so how to start using it. And on the second half, we will have the highlights of the latest release, which is 6.3. And also that we have someone from the US joining us to explain how the biggest PySide customer is using PySide at the moment. So maybe interesting for you is a webinar. If you want to watch it live, just watch it on YouTube afterwards. OK, so packaging. So we are at this stage, like you have licenses there, whatever you want to use. But still, we noticed that that something was missing, and still people kind of need to do that. So luckily for the folks kind of struggling with the packaging thing, we have already some research around like how we can improve a tool, maybe build something with a more Qt flavor that can be help, and maybe to use different backends to provide a proper packaging compiling solution. And for that, I don't know where Shyam is. There you are. So Shyam is working on that. So if you have questions or requests, you can follow him. The address is in this slide. No, that's not the address. And yeah. So another thing that is really important is that, of course, not everyone likes vanilla ice cream. And when I'm saying, I'm not talking about the ice cream, but the vanilla Python. If you don't need to know Python, the main interpreter everyone is using is written in C, which is kind of like the standard implementation. But there are many other implementations as well. There are implementations written in C#, in Java, in Rust, for example. There's a new project, and you name it. But one of the implementations out there that is really popular, it's the implementation of Python in Python. Yeah, quite a recursive thing, like when Git was developed under Git. It was a really weird thing, but they implement the Python interpreter in Python. And surprise, surprise, it's faster than the one written in C. That's material for another talk. But it's faster. So on average, they display there, there are usually a couple of minor releases behind the official ones. So I think the latest one is 3.9. 3.11, for example, just to give you an idea, is coming out in October. And on average, of course, under its different performance, it's a little bit faster, and this time it's 4 times. Of course, you have a really powerful machine, then maybe the difference will be almost nothing. But then we thought, you know what, let's try to be compatible. So in a nutshell, not to go into much details there, you need to take care of many things, because besides, instead of calling Python, then you need to call PyPy. There are many internal things that needs to be fixed. For example, how the types definition at the C level of Python things is not the same for PyPy because of many other details. I will not bore you with that. But there were things to be done first. So we had the wheels, and people is trying already. So if you heard about PyPy, maybe you also can get a try. The wheels are not, of course, in the official PyPI, not to be confused. PyPI is for packages, PyPy, the other interpreter. You can get it from download Qt.io. If you go to their official releases, you will find your way. If not, just visit the last blog post about the 6.3 release. So this was, at least for me, really groundbreaking because it's the first large project that is PyPy compatible. And we got patches from the PyPy community as well. They were even really happy announcing on Twitter and stuff like that because before that, not many projects were working towards a compatibility with other interpreters. And as I said, I mean, why not? In the future, when we have other interpreters or which are mature enough, like Rust Python, maybe we can give it a try and try to see if we can add, again, more value to our users so they can use different flavors and try to play around with different things. So this is a little example. I took the numbers from another developer that we have, Christian Tisma. He was using, I think, a MacBook Pro from a couple of years ago. So you can see here, there is this Mandelbrot example that we have inside our examples directory. And he was running it with Python and then with PyPy. So you can see that it even can reach like around 10 times faster for this kind of performance situation. Of course, I'm not saying that this is an application with 2 buttons and then you click, oh, it's 10 times faster, but there's a lot of computations happening inside. So if you haven't checked it out, maybe you can't. And it will be, I think, a really pleasant surprise for you. So, second part of the talk, Shiboken. So this is something that at least it was not really intended to be kind of like a final product to offer to everyone using PySite, but it became one. So Shiboken is the binding generation, the generator tool that is used by PySite. Originally, it shares large portion of the source code from the Java bindings. Who here do remember QtJambi? Does someone? Ah, okay. So there are some people who remember Jambi. They were using Shiboken originally, and well, the aspect of it. The name is something that some developers they decided to put. It doesn't even mean anything in Japanese. There are like 3 kanjis, but whatever. And this was we were polishing to try to get better wrapper code and stuff. If you are not familiar how this works, maybe binding is not your thing, and you heard about it and you believe that there are some API calls, I can tell you how we generate the project, for example. So let's imagine we have Shiboken there as an engine that will run everything. First thing we do is to go and explore the Qt headers. So for that, we use libclang. We get all the information. So in a nutshell, we get classes, methods, types in the argument, all these things that then we need to analyze and parse and everything. But as you might know, if we only did that and then wrote some code, everything will explode in their faces because there are many things that makes no sense in Python. The usual example that I do is that imagine an API method that has a void star. What is that in Python? Right? It's kind of abstract. So you need to handle and modify things. The whole concept of references, for example. If you pass a variable as a reference or as a pointer, how do you handle that in Python? Well, you cannot, so you need to adapt things. For that, we have a type system, which is nothing else like an XML file where you can specify A. So this method, please change this argument for this other type. And we provide some converters. If the converter is not there, you can do it yourself, which is nothing else than some snippets, C++ lines. We have, of course, their own way of getting access to the different arguments that the method will have and so on and so forth. But after you get used to it, it comes kind of natural. So you get these type systems. Then, OK, you are aware of all the modifications that you need to do. And then you generate this wrapper code, which is the thing that I was mentioning before, large C++ code that in the middle calls some Qt API, but needs to deal with the whole transformation between Python types and C++ types. And then we compile that code, and since we know how to use the C API to create a Python module, then we create PySite. So this tool is the one that has been used the most by, at least, for example, commercial customers, more like just writing applications, because of the possibilities that this thing was enabling people to do for. So the first one is that to use Shiboken in a generic way, meaning like, don't worry about Qt, just you have some C++ code, maybe you have something really performant that has been developed by 20 years, and now you have a team of data scientists that they would like to use that API, but then, surprise, your data science team knows Python, not C++. So you can expose that into Python so they can use it directly with the same performance that we, of course, you will have, plus a little bit of overhead. But the same idea that I was describing before with the whole NumPy and PyTorch and all these kind of popular modules. So for that, what do you need? Imagine you have a really, really, really simple example that it will have some header with some implementation that has one function that is called hello. You will need to have some CMake file to do the build and linking your code, and the only things that you require from the Shiboken side of things, besides the executable, of course, it's the bindings header, which is a general one when you put there all the headers that you are using, and the type system that I was just describing. So you are saying that, hey, well, this package will be called simple, and there is a function called hello. So how these things look? So first, I think that this is the implementation, so really difficult program there. This is what my goal is, to do import simple and print simple.hello in Python. You compile some stuff, and then you will be able to, I think that I am copying here, the shared library. No, because this was there. There was an example that I used in a different presentation. Yeah, the shared library there, because I didn't do I didn't know how to CMake. And there you execute, of course, you have the library there, you execute the Python code, and you get the code that you got before. Simple. Well, again, starts there because the CMake that you saw that was generating everything in place, it's something that is a little bit complicated to handle. You need to learn a lot of things about how to do the linking and what to use and what not. But we have a solution to make your life easier, of course, that I will mention afterwards. The other thing, really typical use case, my company developed these really custom widgets that we use for ages and we don't want to keep using it, but those are not native Qt widgets, so we implement our own things. You can expose only that as well. So here you have the really typical old school example, the wiggle text that we have in Qt. So what we did in this example, that again is available in the example list, is that we got the C++ implementation, we wrote the same files that we were describing before, this type system, CMake, and the header files. We exposed that to Python, and here you can see the Python code that is calling the Python implementation, that we just fully translate the code, and the C++, which is just exposed by the Shiboken process. As you can see, kind of like it's the same thing. Of course, if you go into more like computational intensive things and stuff, you will see maybe some difference, but so far nobody has complained, so at the moment someone complains, we will try to work and fix those things. And this is my favorite example. It's the one that I always show. It's an interface there, which is written in Qt and C++. You cannot read anything from the interface at the moment, right? So that's really a problem. So you can see that I click some button there, and then you get some responses on the terminal. So now there was an empty space on the left that maybe you didn't read it as well, but it's called plugins. So what I'm doing there is copying some Python files. You can see their simple file that's even Python 6, with some functionality. I'm adding some Q actions and so on and so forth. Nothing outside of this world, no fancy things. So if you just notice at the top, now you have more options. One of those is zoom in. And this application, of course, is from Python, and also you have dark mode, because you need dark mode if you want to survive in 2022. So then you have this functionality written in Python, because we managed to expose the Q main window object. And since we expose that with Shiboken, then you can have access to whatever you have inside. This is the most common and most popular use case among many commercial customers. So if you want to check it out, I totally encourage you. As again, this example, I think, I don't know if this includes the plugins, but the idea of it, it's inside the repository as well. It's called a scriptable application. If you don't remember, you can send me a message. Hey, how was the name of the thing? And you can check it out. But this is really cool. So imagine, you can enable and unleash, enable your users to write whatever plugin they have for your C++ application in Python, when you're having the dependency, of course, with the interpreter and everything, and you're going to start expanding and scripting your applications as well. And as I said, this has been used for many commercial customers as well, so it's not like this is like just a proof of concept and doesn't work. No, people is using it quite a lot, and this is the aspects that tomorrow Keith would be talking in the webinar, which is explaining how Autodesk Maya, for example, is using this same functionality idea. So with that, I think that we are fine with the time. So I was mentioning before that writing this CMake and the type system for Shiboken might be a little bit complicated in case you are not familiarized with it. But for that, we decided to have one commercial application, and this is the Shiboken Wizard. The idea of this application is quite simple. There is a video there that also is available. Then later on, you can click, and you can check like how it works, how it generates. But in a nutshell, you add the library that you want to expose. You select which Qt modules are using, and that will generate a CMake file for you, type system for you. So then you need to just even click on build. I think that we have a build button, yes, on top. So you build, and then you have the bindings. That's it. You don't need to worry about it. So if you are interested in this, this is as a commercial solution that we have, the only one that we have so far. So yeah, if you're a commercial user, you can give it a try. And what else? There are many things that have been happening in Shiboken as well. As I said, this was intended just to help us, but then as soon as we started to get feedback from people using it, among them, for example, many folks at QtDev also have been using it and sending us feedback and patches and many other things. We have been doing many things. So the first one, for example, is to reduce the amount of code that we have in these wrappers. We noticed that there are some things that could be removed, mainly with the final goal of kind of like reducing the size of the binaries, because as you know, I mean, if you have an application, you need to include, I don't know, core, widgets, and I don't know, web engine, then it's like a couple of hundreds megabytes there more. So we're trying to optimize a little bit, squeeze there, and this is one of the things that has been worked on lately. The other one is that we noticed that we had a pattern in every single module that we were using the same converters, like the thing that I mentioned before, like Python list to QVector and other structures. So we noticed, like, instead of having this explicitly, why we don't include those things inside Shiboken. So if tomorrow you want to expose some API for those things, you can just use it and don't worry about a converter. We use that. Something else was added was the handling native data types in general, because before you needed to declare in Shiboken, like, I'm using a bool, an int, and string, and it was like, I mean, come on, I mean, it's really, let's not do that and just put it inside as well. So Shiboken is aware that you might use some types. And the last but not least, things that we have, just to highlight a few, is that we have free functions. So it's really cool because then you can just put a free function wherever you want in a class or a module. You can define your own converters. You can define the way that you handle the data here and there, define the signature and everything, and then you can have it there as well. So after this couple of usages of PySat and Shiboken in general, at the Qt company, we have some events that happens like maybe a couple of times per year, which is on internal hackathons. Of course, I mean, there are many amazing projects that are there, and I tried once to play a little bit more with Python and C++, and I had an idea, which is not a new idea, to be honest, but it's mainly related to scripting more. So the reason that I wrote that with the Y is because I thought about QtScript. Maybe if you saw the World Summit talk that I gave like last year, you're familiar with many things that I am saying right now. If you were in the Qt Contributor Summit, I also mentioned it there as well. But if it's new to you, let me explain you what it does. So first of all, don't get scared. I know that many people said, oh, QtScript, again, that's deprecated, kill it with fire. No, it's inspired in the idea of QtScript, but it's not a port. It's just, OK, I saw some example code and said, can we do the same with Python? So as I was saying before, it's a dynamic way of kind of like putting Python and C++ together. And the idea, the final goal will be to expose many Python modules to C++ user in a C++ way. So again, really proof of concept, not even alpha, I say, because I just have a test file and that's it. So this is what kind of looks like from the C++ point of view. I created only a couple of functions there, execute, which is just running something in Python, not worrying about what is coming and returning. There is also the evaluate, as you can see there. Everything is working around qvariants because I'm really lazy. So, you know, whatever I had return is a qvariant list. You have the evaluate in this case. If you want to execute some code like generating a Python list, for example, and getting the result there, you get a qvariant list so far. But also the more interesting thing is that how can I load Python functions and then use it in a C++ context? So there you can see there is some option to create a module, so mainly to focus on some like a file that I have with something implemented. Then you can get an instance of the function. You can specify the name of the function and the reference to the module. And then you can declare the arguments and call the function itself. So I think now I have So here you can find a couple of usages of this really proof of concept, nothing too serious so far. Like the first one is just doing a print. That's why you just see the thing, nothing is returned. Second one, evaluating a string with the functionality from Python title, so to capitalize each initial letter from words. And then you have the whole module thing that I was just explaining about, like I have a file that is called super.py, and inside I have a function, really complicated function called add 3 numbers that receives 3 numbers. And then you can get the reference from it, load it, and use it from that. So for this, I was thinking like, yeah, but I mean, you can write as function as well. And it happened to me the other day that I wanted to do something to kind of like get the content from one of the websites in the wiki page from the Git project. And I can show you here. So on the right side, you can see this is the maintainer list that we had. Why? Because as you might know that we have elections, I think they're open now, I don't remember, of a new chief maintainer for the Qt project. So I wanted to get some statistic about like how many people we have from which countries, which companies, and whatever. And then I noticed that we have all this information here in these tables, and I was like, oh, I need to parse this thing. So I thought, okay, I will write my own part, I will download the HTML, use whatever HTML parse or whatever. And then I noticed for one of the modules that I was using, sometimes, pandas, they have an option called read HTML. And if you pass the URL there, and then, for example, I select one of the data frames that are coming, oh, you cannot read it now, maybe again. Automatically, because of course, under the hood is used some XML parser and everything, you can get the table with all the information. So I was thinking that imagine how easy it will be to do kind of like grab this thing and put it in some C++ code, and then you get, I don't know, some matrix of values or something like that. Maybe if you're really like into other C++ libraries, you know already something that also you can read and parse in one line and get a list of matrices or something like that. But I know, personally, I found it really, really nice that maybe if I could put this kind of information inside a C++ code and maybe use that content. Maybe not. Maybe you think what you're talking about, Christian, is really useless. It was useful for me. So yeah, this is the idea. Overall, of course, it would be really cool to add more functionality to this, and maybe to kind of do a determination of like the types that you're returning and other things like that, to not have everything in the qvariant. How much time do you have left? Oh, we have. OK, cool. Now I'm just finishing. So yeah, if you're up to it, I will try to push this into Gareth. So you can contribute or check it out and see, OK, useless, and remove it. Or maybe say, oh my God, this is the next big thing, and you can jump into it. So for the future, I should have put this with some animation so you don't get spoiled of everything. But the first one is that, as you can see, we have been doing many efforts on improving the Python ecosystem and how we interact with them. There have been cases with open source modules, like one that is called PyQt Graph. Even if the name has PyQt, they are compatible with PySide, just disclaimer. That they had, oh, you know what, this thing is really not performant. We need a special method that maybe use something else. And we did some API for them, because we took the liberty, and nobody said anything, that to add new API on top of what we already had. So this is the type of things that we are really open to it. So if you have a specific use case of maybe a method, something that could be improved by whatever other Python type that is more performant than a normal Python type, like a list, and like using an NP array, for example, let us know. The second thing is that in the last 6.3 release, we enabled cross-compilation, which was something that was missing and demanding by many, many, many folks, mainly because we had many users that were using embedded devices like Raspberry Pi. Like, how can I get Raspberry Pi there? Sorry, PySide there. So like, yeah, well, you need to build it. Building a Raspberry Pi, no fun. But so we enabled this with the help from people from the Build Tools team, and it's there. It works for our significant scenarios. We noticed already there was an issue with Jocto, but we are working on how to solve that. But it's there, and we need to keep pushing for it to have it more like mature, so we can put it out there and you can use it more on a daily basis. The third point there is something that, at least for me, is really painful, because every time that we were announcing something new, they were like, can I write my Python application on my Android phone? And I was like, no, you cannot. And then it was like, at some point, I said, okay, you know what? Let's try to do something about it. There are many ideas in the making. I'm not smart enough to do this, so that's why Shyam is in charge. So again, you can grab him and ask him all the questions. But we would like to achieve, hopefully within this year, something like a proof of concept, like you have an application you can run on Android. We, of course, we know guarantees or anything like that, but we want to see how difficult would it be to reach that. There are many ideas that we had, mainly for other modules doing the same thing, encapsulating Python script in C++, or maybe calling something else that just put the interpreter there. We will see. And the last but not least, if you're not familiar with how the Python community is evolving, the next big thing in Python is WebAssembly. Even we know we had it for a long time, but why? Because they wanted to have it in a way that you can write Python similarly how you were writing JavaScript in your HTML files. There's even a special tag now developed by Anaconda, another company. So it's the next big thing. The interpreter already, you can cross-compile it to WebAssembly. You can use it. You can have an interpreter in WebAssembly. So one of the latest points in the slides of this keynote in the PyCon US was that one of the next steps was finding a widget library. So we thought, maybe we can do that widget library. So we are trying to do some research on that regard and see if we could put Qt applications written in Python on WebAssembly. And that kind of solves the mobile solution as well, because then you can open your smartphone and have a browser as well, so it would load. So this is more or less what we are planning. And as I said, it's not just marketing just to look nice in the video, like, yeah, give us your feedback. No, it's really happening that most of the new features that we have here are coming from the community. It's like, well, but it would be really nice to have this. Okay, why not? We explore it. Because as people developing the library, it's difficult for us to see which other application is missing, because we are not doing applications. We are just writing the library. So please, if you have ideas, just submit a ticket and we will check it out. And just some resources to finish. The first one is the landing page for the product, so you can see a really funny video there. The second and main page that we kind of use for compatibility and everything is the wiki page. You can find information there as well to how to join the different platforms. The official documentation as well, we try to have a similar theme that the Qt docs, but it's a whole independent thing. If you haven't, we have a new theme there, which is quite cool. But also, if you want to join us, we have bridges along all these kind of like platforms. So at the moment, if you're on Telegram, IRC, Matrix, or Gitter, you can talk to the same kind of source and the same people will read it. If not, you can use the mailing list as well. So yeah, that will be from my side, and I hope you enjoy some of the things that I described. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. We have a little bit of time for some questions, so are there questions?
If you don't manage to do your question here, I will be around until the end of the event. You can find me outside.
Is type registration for QML work for your custom UI types in Python? Are you able to do that?
Yes. So we, for example, this is something that I didn't explore and didn't want to put here because it's kind of like for another talk, but we put a lot of effort in QML lately. We didn't have many things. I'm being really with you, confessing this, that we didn't have much support in QML in 5.15, but with 6, we started to go crazy. And there are many things as well, like for example, now we are compatible with QML types. You can kind of like run QML lint in applications. And the main use case that we have so far is to have backend in Python. So you have a type and then use it in QML. That's kind of the main use case that we have at the moment.
Any other questions? There's one in the back there.
Hi, great presentation, thanks. Can I create dynamic properties to objects? Is that possible?
You mean like assigning new properties to Q objects in Python?
Yes, Python Q objects.
I think this is
those exposed to QML.
We don't have any specific example use case, but this is kind of what we do at runtime when we do this feature option. we kind of like somehow expose the property. So yeah, maybe I think that it would be really cool if we could discuss this, or maybe you can open a request with some code involved. But I think that it will be possible to do. I haven't tried, and it's something really simple that we should have tried, but I haven't. But let's look at it. I cannot give you an answer now because we don't have any example that does that as far as I know.
We'll follow up on that. Thanks.
But we should. I mean, it's really simple, so I think that it shouldn't be a problem. But yeah.
Any other questions? I have one, actually. Is there something like a ready-made Python console that you could integrate into a Qt application? Because that's something we've seen customers ask for. So basically expose some part of your application to Python using the facilities that are there, and then have an interactive Python prompt somewhere in the application so you can actually, dynamically interact with it. I mean, you can build that yourself, obviously.
Yeah, you can build now, but we don't have anything like that. And I think that there's also some Python consoles from the Jupyter community that they have something, I think, at the Qt console as well. It's kind of like an IPython REPL that you can put in it's a widget that they did, but we don't have anything like that. But yeah, this is something also that I forgot to mention, that is one of the things that also is quite requested, because people would like to have like the same way that you saw this editor on the scripting application, to have something then start trying dynamically.
As far as I know, we've used Jupyter so far.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, is that something you're looking into, making that kind of more out of the box?
Yeah, but could be. We can do something.
All right.
It would be cool, yes.
Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll have a coffee break, and I believe then the design studio talk after this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.